Hello everyone. Thank you for joining this month's Connect with Control-M session. My name is Joe and I work as a technical support analyst. Today we will be discussing securing Control-M Enterprise Manager client connectivity in version 9.20. Joining us are our panelists for today. Allow me to introduce Octavio Vasquez and Gil DeMol. We recommend viewing the presentation in full screen mode by selecting the arrow button on the bottom right-hand corner of the video player. Selecting the video quality option to view in full resolution will offer the best viewing experience. Please note that this presentation is available via the Attachments tab on the bottom of your screen. For any questions you may have during the presentation, please feel free to post them in the Ask Question box. We will be addressing these questions at the end of the session. We will be covering the following topics during this session. First, an overview of the process to secure Control-M client connectivity. Next, requirements and considerations to consider before getting started. Next, a demo outlining the process steps. Additionally, this demo will include troubleshooting scenarios for common issues. We'll have a quick recap. Resource links to the SSL documentation and a knowledge article will be provided. And finally, a question and answer session with our panelists. Here's an overview of the process. We will configure SSL between the Control-M Enterprise Manager web server and Control-M client applications. Starting with Control-M version 9.18, the client will connect to the Enterprise Manager via this web server. Out of the three possible Control-M zone configurations, this is SSL Zone 1 configuration. Here's a diagram showing this. We have our client application connecting to our Enterprise Manager web server securely using HTTPS. Next, we'll go over the requirements. PKCS number 12 is the only key store format supported on Control-M version 9.20. PKCS number 12, also known as PKCS 12 or PFX, is a binary format for storing a certificate chain and private key in a single encryptable file. You must trust the deployed cert on the Enterprise Manager client computer or the HTTPS login will not work. Be sure to add the subject alternate name, the SAN, to the certificate for compatibility with web browsers such as Google Chrome. These are additional requirements. We will use the Enterprise Manager Manage Web Server utility to deploy the certificate. The key store and private key password must match, and this password should be 8 characters or less. On to the demo. First, we'll generate the CSR. This is known as the certificate signing request. We'll create the P12 key store using the certificate, private key, and CA certificate information. We'll deploy the certificate using the Manage Web Server utility. And finally, we'll go over some troubleshooting scenarios for common issues with this setup. We will navigate to the Control-M for Web URL using HTTPS. Notice the connection not private warning and invalid certificate authority. Control-M comes with demo certificates that must be replaced with certificates from your organization in order to use the HTTPS login. Here on the Control-M client, we are receiving a warning that the server certificate is not trusted by the operating system. Again, this is the demo certificate. To get started, we will log into our Control-M Enterprise Manager and switch to the Enterprise Manager user account. Navigate to the CTM EM Data SSL config directory. Back up the CSR params configuration file. The CSR is our certificate signing request file. Modify this file with information from your organization. The CN stands for Common Name. Be sure to include the fully qualified domain name of the Control-M Enterprise Manager web server. Add a required extensions heading and add the key usage. Next, add the subject alternate name as outlined in our SSL documentation. The DNS name must be the fully qualified domain name, or your web browser will flag this as incorrect. Our CSR configuration file is now complete. Save and write this file. We will create the private key and certificate signing request file with the CTM key tool command, create CSR, and specify a password that is 8 characters or less. The certificate signing request file and private key have been created. Looking into this directory, we have our CSR. Send this file to your IT or information security team. Your team will use this file to sign the domain certificate. Here is the newly created private key. We will use this key in an upcoming step. Again, send the CSR to your IT or information security team. Here the team has returned 3 files. Our first is the company's root certificate authority. Next is the company's issuing, otherwise known as the intermediate certificate authority. You may have multiple intermediate certs. And finally, our signed domain certificate. To view more information about this signed domain certificate, you can run the following OpenSSL command. We execute this command, and we can see more information about the certificate issuer, the subject information, and importantly, the CN. Here, this TN, the common name, is set to the fully qualified domain name. And scrolling farther down, we can verify the extensions. We see that the digital signature and key encipherment has been set up correctly. And next, the subject alternate name, the SAN, has been set up to the fully qualified domain name, and this is for web browser compatibility. Next, we will combine the root cert and issuing cert to create a single chain certificate file. Please work with your web administrator to get the correct chain certificate file created. In this example, we are adding our root cert and issuing cert. We can view this. We see our first root certificate and finally the intermediate or issuing certificate. Next, we'll create the Tomcat P12 key store using the following command. It'll take in our certificate. Highlighted here is our signed domain certificate. Next is the private key. This was created earlier and is located in the private keys directory. This will be an export action. Here we specify the key store and private key password, which are the same. Next is our certificate chain file that we just created. In this example, it is chain.cer. We'll be outputting the Tomcat P12 file. And here we just specify a friendly name for the key store and certificate authority. Here's the command again with all the examples filled out. We have our signed domain certificate, our private key, our password, our chain file, the Tomcat key store, and the friendly names. The Tomcat P12 key store has now been created. You can run the following command to view more information about this key store file. Here we can see the subject information, including the common name. Next is the issuer information. And then finally, we have all three certificates, our signed domain certificate, the root certificate, and the intermediate or issuing certificate. Next, we'll navigate into the CTM EM INI SSL directory. Here is the existing Tomcat P12 key store. This is the included demo key store. Please back up this key store. And we will copy the newly created key store to this directory, overriding the demo. And again, we have our newly created key store and a backup of the demo. Now we will deploy the newly created key store with the manage web server command. We will select the Tomcat configuration. Next, we will select the SSL mode. And here we see that the current SSL mode is set to false. Yes, we want to change it. And yes, we do want to use SSL. Notice that this change will take effect after recycling the web server. Now we'll choose the secure connector configuration. We will choose the edit SSL connector. And we have our HTTPS connector using port 8446. Here we will look at option 4. This is our Tomcat key store file. And option 5, we need to update our key store password. So we choose option 5. And for this demo, our password is change it. Be sure to choose the save option. Our new password has now been encrypted, and we will exit the Manage Web Server menu. We will recycle the Enterprise Manager web server with the stop web server command and start the web server with the start web server command. To view the web server status at any time, you can run the emweb_status command, and we see that our newly created HTTPS connector is up. Now we will move on to the Control-M client computer. If your organization does not automatically deploy the root and intermediate certificates to your computer, you will need to manually install the key store containing these certificates to your computer. Here we have copied the key store from the Control-M Enterprise Manager to our client computer. Right-click and choose Install PFX. We will select the default options for this demo, enter the change it password, and again choose next to complete this import wizard. And we see that the import was successful. Navigating to the start menu, certificate, choose user certificates. Here we see the signed domain certificate. Double-clicking this file will show the properties. Navigating to the Details tab, We can see information on the issuer, the subject, the key usage, the subject alternative name, the certificate path. Here's the hierarchy. We see our signed domain certificate, the intermediate cert, and the root cert. These other certs can be viewed in these directories. Here, trusted root, we see our root certificate, and in the intermediate, we see our intermediate or issuing certificate. Next, we'll test the HTTPS login with the Control-M client. We have selected the SSL environment, fully qualified domain name with port. The login completes successfully. Control-M configuration manager. We have our fully qualified domain name and port. No warnings received. And we're able to log in successfully. We'll test the Control-M for web by selecting the web server URL. Notice again the fully qualified domain name and port. In this example, we'll be using Google Chrome. Notice the secure padlock in the title bar. The certificate is valid. Next, we'll move on to troubleshooting for common issues. In this example, we receive a warning that the server certificate must be trusted by the computer's operating system. This is shown here in the Control-M client attempting to log in over HTTPS. We have the warning that the server certificate is not trusted on this computer. For more information on certificates on this computer, we will navigate to the Start menu, Certificate Manager. Viewing the installed certificates, we see that no certificate was installed for Control-M. To remedy, just import the key store containing the server certificates. In this next issue, we have an error that the hostname in the certificate does not match the server hostname. This is shown here attempting to log in over HTTPS using the short name instead of the fully qualified domain name. Attempting to log in yields the error, and it tells us exactly what hostname it is expecting. For more information on the hostname configured in the certificate, you can launch the certificate manager, open up the certificate properties, and here we see in the subject that the CN common name is set to the fully qualified domain name. To fix, just log in using the fully qualified domain name. For the next issue, we see that the HTTPS connector does not start after recycling the web server. You can see the web server status with the em web status command. Notice that the HTTPS connector using port 8446 has a current status of down. For more information on this issue, we will navigate to the following directory: ctm-em, etc, emweb, tomcat logs. In this directory, we have our information on the web server. We are most interested in the catalina0.log file. We will view this file. We see startup information for this connector, including version information and such. We will scroll down and look for an issue with that connector. And here we see a severe tag, and it failed to initialize the component. And here we see that this was caused by the key store password was incorrect. This is fixed using the Manage Web Server utility and inputting the correct key store password. Our final troubleshooting scenario, the CCM or Control-M Configuration Manager web server URLs shows the short hostname instead of the FQDN. This is shown here in the CCM. Navigate to the EM web server URLs. We see the short hostname instead of the FQDN. Clicking this will yield an error in the web browser. To fix this, we will first start by logging into our Enterprise Manager and launching the root menu. Provide the EM credentials. Option 1 is the activation menu. We need to stop the following services. Number 9, Corba naming service. Number 10, configuration agent service. And finally, number 11, configuration server service. All the services have been brought down. Again, option 9, 10, and 11 are the highlighted services. Okay, with the services stopped, we will exit the root menu. And please review the command on the screen. This is the restore host config interface name, and provide the FQDN, the fully qualified domain name. This will update the Enterprise Manager database, provide the credentials. The interface hostname was updated successfully, and we have updated to the FQDN. Now with the root menu, root_menu, we will log in with the credentials, activation menu, option 1, and we're going to start the services that we previously stopped. So option 4, option 5, option 6. Naming, configuration agent, and configuration server services. And with this done, we navigate to the web server URLs and we see the correct FQDN. In summary, we configured SSL between the Control-M Enterprise Manager web server and Control-M client applications, and we trusted the deployed certificate on the client side. Here are the resources for this process. The first is the SSL Zone 1 documentation, and second is the knowledge article for fixing the short host name in the CCM. Thank you for attending this presentation. We hope the information provided proves useful in helping you set up SSL in your Control-M environment. We would like to encourage you to provide your feedback on the webinar in the Feedback tab. Please let us know what you thought about this presentation, any topics you may want covered in the future, or any comments or suggestions you may have. Also, we will be sending you a survey in the following days and would appreciate it if you took a few minutes of your time to fill your responses and send these in. You may follow us on social media platforms via Facebook and Twitter. Past BMC webinars may be viewed on BMC Communities via YouTube and iTunes. Today's webinar will be posted in a few days. The next Connect with Control-M session will cover securing the communication between the Control-M Enterprise Manager and Control-M Server. We will now proceed with the question and answer session.